As President Trump stated yesterday, he is still committed to placing tariffs on Canada starting as early as tomorrow. We're all trying to protect our future. Maybe it's finding a job that pays well, buying groceries without breaking the bank, or living the American dream. But what if I told you there's a hidden threat quietly creeping into our lives? Welcome to an economic standoff, where big trade disputes and political fights can seriously affect your money. From rising prices on foreign goods to broken supply chains that can shut down entire towns, we will show you the risks that most people do not see. Stick with me until the very end because the final piece of this puzzle will surprise you. Think of this as your guide to avoiding financial trouble before it happens. Miss this and you could be stepping straight into an economic whirlwind. Change in its trade policy. The government declared a new tariff plan that added a 25% charge on certain goods coming from the United States. It also set a 10% fee on energy products. These two countries had enjoyed many years of friendly trade and smooth movement of goods. News outlets reported on the sudden shift with disbelief. Trump is not joking when he says he wants to annex Canada. Those words came from none other than the Prime Minister himself. Talk shows filled with experts discussing what might happen next. Ordinary families also wondered how this decision would affect their budgets and daily lives. Some people worried about higher prices at grocery stores, while others felt proud that Canada was standing up for itself. Social media users voiced strong opinions. Within a few hours, the mood shifted from calm to anxious as everyone waited for official statements. Many officials assumed Canada would never retaliate with such high tariffs. Yet, Canada's action showed that it was ready to protect its own industries and workers. It was an unthinkable step for a country that often relied on quiet diplomacy. By setting these tariffs, Canada sent a clear message that it would not remain silent if it felt threatened or overlooked. In that single announcement, the entire North American trade environment changed. Is this really a surprise attack? For decades, the relationship between Canada and the United States was marked by mutual respect. They shared open borders, cultural connections, and major trade agreements. One of these was the North American Free Trade Agreement, later updated as the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement. These deals aimed to make trade smoother. Many people in the United States believed that Canada would always cooperate and never break the peace, even if disagreements arose behind closed doors. However, Canada had grown uneasy with certain policies from Washington, D.C. Various announcements and changes seemed to sideline Canadian interests, leaving officials in Ottawa concerned about their own economic stability. Public sentiment also started to shift. Local businesses and workers urged the government to defend Canadian jobs, especially when they saw moves in the United States that favored American industries at Canada's expense. Though politeness had been the norm, the rising pressure made Canada rethink its usual approach. When Canada finally declared these tariffs, many American leaders were caught by surprise. They had grown used to easy talks or quick concessions. They never imagined significant pushback could come from their northern neighbors. That illusion ended as soon as Canadian officials declared that enough was enough. By standing tall, Canada challenged the usual power balance. This unexpected stance highlighted how any partner, if pushed too far, may adopt drastic measures to protect its interests. Such a response was new ground for both nations. Politicians in turmoil. In the United States Capitol, the mood turned tense as soon as the news broke. Lawmakers rushed between meetings, trying to figure out if they should condemn Canada's move or try to calm the situation. Some politicians accused Canada of overreacting, while others blamed the White House for not managing the trade relationship more carefully. Behind the scenes, aides drafted talking points and prepared for what might become a larger dispute that could harm both economies. Televised briefings showed spokespeople struggling to answer direct questions. Many reporters asked why the administration had not seen this coming. One official insisted that the tariffs were a small bump in the road, while another warned that this was no ordinary misunderstanding. The public watched, eager for reassurance, but few found clear guidance. As different voices competed for the spotlight, a sense of chaos set in. Rumors spread of emergency discussions aimed at preventing a deeper conflict. Private sector leaders also urged Washington to take swift action to resolve the standoff. Some argued that the United States and Canada needed to sit down immediately and rework trade terms, while others wanted to double down on tough tactics to show strength. That disagreement highlighted the split in American politics: negotiate or escalate. Meanwhile, citizens worried about potential price hikes on household goods and disruptions to daily life. In this unsettled climate, each speech and policy move carried greater weight. Uncertainty became the new normal on Capitol Hill. Canada rallies, north of the border, a different spirit prevailed. Rather than crumbling beneath the weight of economic pressures, Canadian leaders rallied their citizens around a shared cause. The Prime Minister spoke in a calm but firm tone, reminding everyone that these tariffs were not meant to harm a neighbor but to protect Canadian jobs. Local radio stations replayed his remarks throughout the day, and newspapers praised the government's determination. In homes across the country, families discussed how they could buy more local goods to help their fellow citizens. Community leaders began small campaigns promoting Canadian products in grocery stores and online shops. Farmers encouraged people to pick homegrown fruit and vegetables, while small factories printed labels urging consumers to choose Canadian brands. Worries about the cost of imported items remained, but many believed a united approach would lessen the impact. Even children learned about supporting home industries, with teachers explaining how every local purchase could make a positive difference. Although some worried about long-term fallout, a clear sense of pride emerged. People saw this moment as proof that Canada could stand on its own, even when faced with larger powers. By relying on mutual support, citizens and officials alike hoped to find a fair solution. Whether the situation would resolve soon or turn into a deeper standoff was uncertain. The country's collective voice rang out, unity in the face of a trade war. Pressure points: Canada has decided to respond to tariffs in a direct but careful way, focusing on specific United States products that can cause the most distress where it matters the most. Instead of placing extra charges on a wide range of items, Canada is looking at goods that carry political and economic weight. Bourbon from Kentucky is a perfect example. This famous drink is tied to a region with influential lawmakers, so any surge in bourbon prices grabs their attention and creates real pressure. Florida orange juice is another target because it comes from a state that is often important during elections, making higher orange juice prices a hot-button issue for both politicians and families. Perhaps the boldest step is aiming tariffs at Tesla, a company that is viewed by many as a leader in modern technology and clean transportation. Tesla relies on critical raw materials such as nickel, lithium, and aluminum, all of which Canada can supply or cut off. By adding extra cost to these resources, Canada sends a loud message that the United States cannot take stable trade for granted. Supporters of electric vehicles want cheaper and more reliable options, but each new fee makes these cars more expensive and harder to build. With this plan, Canada is not acting at random. Each tariff hits a spot that will be felt by lawmakers, industry leaders, and regular shoppers. By charging extra on bourbon, orange juice, and important electric vehicle materials, Canada forces the United States government to think about whether a trade fight is really worth the damage. This approach may look ruthless, but from a strategic point of view, it is straightforward: hit the areas that guarantee a reaction. When cost increases appear in family kitchens and high-tech assembly plants, officials in Washington might finally realize that these policies carry a steep price for everyday people. The auto supply chain: the modern automobile is not built in one single place. Instead, parts travel back and forth across the border many times before a car is ready for sale.